Welcome everyone to our Sunday sit. So happy to see so many folks. Thanks to those of you who are here who came to our event yesterday. We'll have another Saturday retreat with Shinzen on April 30th. Hope to see some of you there at our beautiful location. We'll be even more in the thick of spring. Just a few, something we've been experimenting with is having community requests. If you would like to donate an item that we happen to need and you happen to have, that would be great. We're in need of a wheelbarrow for carrying wood and a big cart. Any kind of big cart, wheelbarrow for wood.
Oxen cart.
An ox cart.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
That's what we need.
Maybe some oxen.
Maybe some oxen.
Depends on the oxen.
I must be Stacy from yesterday because I was going to throw out a song title when you were asking for requests.
I don't know if you want to hear me sing. And then we're also looking for a soldering iron.
Can you go get a better mallet outside?
Oh, yes.
We could use a small mallet.
No, Ben's gonna get one right now.
Oh, okay.
There's plenty outside.
And also if you happen to have a singing bowl or bell that you would like to donate to a community practice.
It'll be used every day.
It'll be used every day, multiple times a day. As Soryu said, more than we use our computers. So.
Because we were talking about how much should we spend on a bell. Well, we use it more than the computer, so how much should we spend on a computer?
That's good reasoning. So, anyway, thank you everyone for being here. And
We use it more than our cars. How much should we spend on a car?
We want fancy bill.
Yeah. Really?
Not a lot of bills.
Yeah. Should get a nice bell. This is an okay bell. Shinzen doesn't like it. Says it's too simple. Hear that? It's too simple. It's not a rich sound. There are no overtones. It is true. It's a relatively cheap, you could say, bell. But it'll work. Thank you. Excellent. You know what we need? The way you do it is you find a branch that has a T, then you break it off. So it's like a hammer. Those are the ones that make the nicest sound. Next time.
so maybe we could use a smaller mallet.
No. It's good. Make it ourselves. I've made lots. It's fun. Because at Sogenji, when you ring the bell, you really ring the bell. It's not like here, where we make a sweet sound. Did you hear my sweet sound? There, you really hit the bell. So we break them. The Roshi will break them often. He'll hit them so hard, the bell will shatter. Well, it doesn't really shatter, but it cracks. And he doesn't care. He'll just keep on hitting it. So imagine hitting this hard enough to break it. So you can imagine that we go through the mallets quickly. We have to make them often.
I hit the bell and I hit it off.
Yeah. You can go to Sogenji and show the Roshi how it's done. Yes. I'm sure he would have approved. I'm sure he would have enjoyed it.
So you're saying Buddhists invented hockey?
Hockey? Yeah, it's kind of like It's the same, the Roshi has the same uncompromising will as maybe a professional hockey player does. Put it that way. So today, we're going to be talking about simplicity and complexity. And so I never know what's going to happen when I come to these talks. I never really know what the talk is going to be about. I heard that the title was Simplicity and Complexity. I read the email earlier today and needed a way to talk about simplicity and complexity. We don't want to bait and switch around here. So in thinking about it, I found out what it's going to be about, and it's a little bit technical. Today's talk is going to be a little technical, just to warn you. But I'm going to try to make something that's hard to say in an exciting way into something that you'll be motivated to practice nonetheless. So this is something that I talk about a lot and no one's ever that interested. I'll try to interest you, and if you're interested, great. If you're not, well, do it anyway. So, in order to prepare for that, let's intentionally develop interest in something that most of us consider to be boring, very uninteresting, but which is actually very important, and that is our breathing. Let's pay attention to our breath for just 3 breaths, and I'll even tell you when to inhale and exhale. And practice being interested in that. Inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. Inhale, exhale. Good. So now you've intentionally developed some interest. Direct that interest towards this topic. When we practice this path, there's a contradiction that we meet up against immediately. That contradiction is that in order for this path to function, it has to be simple. It just has to be simple. That's how it is. However, it's a very complicated path with many components, each of which has to be fine-tuned. So we have a contradiction. We need a simple path, but the path is complicated. But it has to be simple, but it's complicated. We start to practice it and it seems simple, and pretty soon we're encouraged to do something else, something a little different, like bring up interest in your breathing. Well, you need some interest in your breathing in order to practice breathing meditation. But if you get too much interest in your breathing, then you get fixated on it. You get carried away by it. So then the person, your teacher, say, might tell you, okay, now let go of the breathing. Say, wait a second, you said to be interested. Say, right, it's kind of complicated. Well, it's complicated, it's breathing. Yes, but it is complicated. You just have to be sure that it's simple. In order for it to be simple, you need to be interested and also let go. It's a little tricky. So the trick of the practice, something that is a skill that I recommend that people practice intentionally, is taking one very simple part of the path for now. At this time, take one simple part of the path. Don't worry about everything else. And master that thing until it becomes automated. Or you could say automatic. And as soon as the thing starts to happen on its own, stop worrying about that and move on to the next thing. From that point forward, you just occasionally check up on that. So one thing would be interest. If you're going to take on interest in your breathing as one component of the practice, which is a good idea. Assuming it's breathing, your focus space could be anything. If it's something else, then be interested in something else. But interest in the focus space, let's say for now, breathing. You want to cultivate that interest. Cultivate it, find tricks, find maneuvers, strategies, until you can maintain interest in your breathing. And the moment you find that interest in your breathing starts to be automatic, stop worrying about it. You did it. You did your part. Now the interest will do its part for you. Let the interest happen now. Bring your attention to something else and cultivate that. Now the technical part. Now this is tricky because I'm going to ask you to try to understand something that requires a lot of conscious consideration. And we need to use that in order to go totally beyond conscious consideration. That is that you'd like it if you had something that started to happen on its own, that fed into something else that's also important for the path. Another thing that's important for the path. And now it's starting to get complicated. Oh boy, hold on a second. This is complicated. Let's say an example, interest. Interest will make it typically easier to concentrate on something because you're interested in it. Since you're interested in something, since you're concentrating on something, you'll notice things about it. Therefore, it will become interesting. You'll start seeing it in new ways, which is interesting. So the interest will feed into the concentration will feed into the interest. If you have developed interest to the point when it can happen more or less automatically, and you've developed concentration to the point when it can happen more or less automatically, and they're both happening automatically at the same time, feeding into each other, then you did something extraordinary. Because that automatic feedback loop will carry you from now on. You can stop carrying it. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? You have to work hard to get to the point when it will start to function on its own. But once it's functioning on its own, to stay consciously involved actually hinders it from its natural functioning. So as soon as you have that, now it's another level of complexity, right? You want to do something until you can just do it automatically. You want to learn how to do 2 or even 3 or more things that feed into each other in a very specific way, all of which happen automatically, plus the feedback loop happens automatically. Very complicated, what I'm saying. I see, when I give talks like this, I see most people just glazing over. I'm sorry, this isn't what I came for. Sorry, this is what you came for. But once you have that level of complexity functioning, suddenly that's out of your mind. Set it aside and return to something very, very simple. Basically start over again. Something extremely simple. like equanimity, like letting go. Not letting go. It's simple. It's simple, isn't it? Right? Simple. You might not do it all the time, but it's simple. It's not complicated. I can say it in just 2 syllables. Let go. It's simple. But then you see, well, okay, but in order to make it so that this starts happening automatically, first I need to practice it so that it starts to happen on its own, even when I'm not trying to do it. I also would like to set up a feedback loop so that something else feeds into it, supports it, so that all of that then starts to happen on its own, so that I can then set all of that aside and go on to the next step. So basically the way this functions is that we consciously, through effort, often manipulation, structure a certain state of mind, whether that's interest, equanimity, whatever it is. Structure it carefully, and that can be tiresome. And that's the part where we really have to work through it, because our eyes tend to just glaze over and what am I doing here? I feel like this is just too complicated for me. But if we can get through that, then there comes a magical moment when we can just drop it and it keeps on going. So I'll give you a couple of metaphors for this, because there are metaphors here. Have any of you have experienced riding a horse? 1 person, 2. Okay, good. About half of us. This is great then. Okay. So I had a horse for a while when I was living on the Navajo reservation named Baby Blue. And Baby Blue hated me. Baby Blue had retired as a horse and was now just a grass-consuming machine. That was all he had to do. And then suddenly he was recommissioned. Oh no, now I have to carry this guy around suddenly. I thought I was done carrying people around. No. So Baby Blue was quite intractable. He wished that I would give up on trying to ride him. And so his first strategy was, I'm not going anywhere. You do what you want. I'm not going anywhere. The hay is right here. I don't see any reason to take you to work right now. I can't think of a single reason, actually. Nope. Sorry. We're going to stay right here. So I kick Baby Blue. Don't, why are you even kicking me? Come on. I'm standing here just fine. Nope, we're going to go, I'd say. Kick, kick, kick. Go. I yell, go. So that was the first thing. How do you get Baby Blue to just get going? It's a question, isn't it? A lot of you have this question, don't you? In your practice, yes. Come on, go. Now, eventually Baby Blue got sick of me being up there, so he had a good idea. Okay, you want me to go, do you? I can go. So he just took off, ran as fast as he could, and he knew just what to do. Some of you may have had this happen to you, when you've been on a horse. He bucked simultaneously in an act of incredible alacrity for such an old, weary horse. He simultaneously bucked and turned. Some of you know about this? Oh, yes. Buck and turn, same moment, and he did successfully turn. I didn't. I just kept going. I remember, this is a long time, this is way back, and I remember being in the air. I remember this clearly. I'm in the air. Cowboy hat flying off of my head. In there like this. So angry. Not afraid of falling, breaking my neck. Just angry. Just so mad. Oh, I thought, you think you can just buck me off, do you? Oh, no. This is still in the air. I'm still rising at this point, you know? And so I already had it planned out by the time I hit the ground. And I hit the ground, bounced, hit again, slid. And I don't know how I did it, but I just jumped up and ran and actually overtook Baby Blue. I don't know how that happened, but somehow, and while he's still running, I don't know how I did this because this is apparently very hard to do. While still running, I got back up on him. Isn't this hard? This is hard, right? Yeah, I don't know how it happened. I was very frustrated. And so I ran, grabbed him, hanging on to the saddle while he's running, and just pulled myself up onto it, got back on it, grabbed the reins, and just took over. I said, that's it. That is not going to happen again. Period. And he tried to do it again, and I was able to just stay on. And then he tried it one more time, and that was it. Not that day. He tried it on. He knew that day he's going to let that one go. But 2 other days he tried it again, and then he just didn't. And so we have to work hard to get to know each other. How do you get him to go? How do you get him to slow down? How do you get him to go in the right direction? How do you get him to work? How do you get him back home? Because he was in a new place. I'd taken him away from his home and his friends and such. So how do you make all this happen? So that was a lot of work. And the metaphor that they talk about, which is so beautiful, is that, and they don't tell us necessarily the story the way I did, because you don't always get bucked off and such. But the metaphor is simply you have to really work with this horse. You have to teach it how to go, you teach it how to slow down, you teach it what you want it to do. And eventually, as those of you know, happens with horses that does not ever happen with a car, they just know eventually. Like they're really smart. They're really great animals. And they have so much intelligence, also so much heart, so much feeling. There's such a connection. And eventually you get to the point where you just kind of know, right? And so he would just take me to work and then take me back. It's so fantastic. You finish work, you get on your horse, and you just have to sit there. And you get home suddenly. You just sit there, looking at the scenery, and then get off. It's amazing, isn't it? Some of you probably experienced this. It's just fantastic. So, so that's what they say it's like with your mind. At first, it's really complicated. Okay, go. All right, stop, turn. Don't buck me off. You're dealing with your mind in all of these ways. It's complicated. It's not this and it's not that either. But it is kind of that. But don't do that. No, stop it. Oh, come on, do it. All of that's happening, and it feels complicated to make it all function together. And then, eventually, after all that hard work, your mind just takes you home. It's totally effortless. It's simple to the point that simple even is too complicated. I didn't tell him what to do at all. He just walked home. That's it. It's so simple that it's even weird to say, you see how even simple feels too complicated? Because it was nothing. I didn't do anything. And not that I had to do something simple. I didn't have to do anything. And there I am, back at home. There he is. It's great. So I think that's a useful metaphor. The other metaphor that they typically use, which is one that I actually tend to use more, is it's like you want to sail somewhere. And so this one is also a very good metaphor. First you have to build the boat, and it's hard to build the boat, and it's complicated, and you need lots of tools. And you make mistakes that you have to fix. eventually you make the boat. And it was hard to do that, but you did it. It may have been fun, but it wasn't simple. I've never made a boat, but I'm good friends with a very talented professional boat builder, and she says it takes an enormous amount of skill. So maybe some of you do that, I don't know. It seems to take a lot of skill. And it's complicated, but you do it eventually. Having done that, and this metaphor comes from a while back, you then have to push the boat down the shore, down the, say, beach. You have to push it, and that takes a lot of effort. Even if you just have a canoe or something, you know, it takes a lot of effort to get the boat into the water. But once the boat's in the water, assuming it has a sail, and in this particular metaphor it does, once you're there, it's easy. You sit there and you just have to do a little bit of work, assuming you know what you're doing. And it's so nice the way this metaphor ends, from the Avatamsaka Sutra. You can travel further in an hour than you could push it in a month. Yes? You push and push and push, and you can't push it for a month. The moon is full and then it's full again. You couldn't push it as far as you can travel with very little effort in an hour. So that metaphor is used regarding our minds, that it's complicated work. You make mistakes. Eventually you get to the point when you're ready, then it still takes a lot of work. But then finally it becomes very simple. Everything becomes simple finally. And I'd suggest that as you do your practice, you should first be sure that you're taking this in manageable steps, so that the step you're taking now is simple. Yes, the current step should be simple, in the same way that it's complicated to make a boat, but the thing you're doing right now, just planing one piece of wood, that's a simple task. So be sure that the thing you're doing now is simple. Then be sure that those simple things are put together in what is in fact typically quite a complicated way. And accept that this is complicated. You don't want it to be more complicated than it has to be, but it can't be less complicated than it has to be either. Having done that, establish these positive feedback loops, which is okay if that's complicated. And then suddenly it's simple. It's more simple than even when you were doing the simplest tasks before. And actually easy. Not just simple, but easy. And very enjoyable. Fun. So let's examine this. And we won't make it too complicated, but we'll make it a little bit complicated. And try to establish some positive feedback loops that we can then depend on to a certain extent. Take a moment to straighten up and settle in. And pay close attention to the experience of straightening up. The experience of straightening your back so that you're tall, open, proud, vulnerable, alert, energetic, clear. That is an action. It's not merely a preliminary step. Is an essential action in the process of meditation. We're presenting ourselves to the world as someone magnificent. And as we do that, we establish a state of mind that allows the world to present itself to us as something magnificent. All done simply by straightening up. It's a very simple act with diverse consequences. Now practice this, the simple act, straightening up. In order to intentionally bring to the surface and cultivate those qualities. Magnificence, alertness, clarity, openness, vulnerability, concentration, power. In the way that I was taught meditation originally, meditation is primarily a physical exercise. Meditation is primarily something we do with our bodies. I know people who are energetic, who like to move. I think meditation isn't for me. And yet this is a movement. This is an action we take with our bodies. Just this, to straighten up. Can that be enough? Can we give everything to that one movement? For a second, or a minute, or an hour. We do that perfectly. So simple that it's hard to do. And notice how, as you're straightening up, we naturally find in a little while, if we keep on doing it wholeheartedly, we naturally find some tight places that want to relax. Naturally find that. And when we find that, it's very important. It's essential to allow that. And at that time, when you find that, settle in. Let your body relax. Let it keep on relaxing. Until that relaxation shows you a new way to straighten up, a less forced way. There may be a difference in alignment of your spine by millimeters only, and yet that feels very different. Within this exercise, begin with something very simple. Straighten up. And do that again and again, just that, until that action completely consumes your awareness. Just straightening up with everything you have. Every bit of energy, straighten up. All of your attention, straighten up. And then notice if at a certain point we want to settle in, we want to relax. The straightening up has led us naturally into relaxation. We just want to relax now. And then do so. Settle in. And let that relaxation show you a new way, a more natural way of straightening up. It's very simple. It even starts to feel simple. It may have seemed complicated before. Straighten up, leading to settling in, that leads to straightening up. How to maintain all this. And then it starts to feel simple. And it's just straightening up with everything we have. Our whole heart is given to straightening up. And we continue to straighten. Making this sacred, as if we're a dancer on stage whose only connection, only way of communicating with the audience is through posture. It's our entire connection to the world, just posture. This one act, we give everything to it. And we find naturally as we do that, we want to relax into that. We don't want to force that. Our bodies, if we continue to throw ourselves totally into straightening up, our bodies naturally want to settle in, want to release the tension and the artificiality of forced feelings within. We want to release that. And so we allow that to happen. We release that. And in releasing it, we find a new, more natural, more authentic way of straightening up. That results in an even cleaner relationship with the world. Allow this wheel to turn. The loop. Straighten up, settle in. Straighten up, settle in. Alert and relaxed. Magnificent and natural. Allow it to begin to happen on its own. So that you don't need to watch it all the time. It starts to happen on its own. When it starts to happen on its own, allow yourself to sit easy in that saddle. Allow yourself to sit easy in that boat. And let the work of the practice start to be done for you. by a force more powerful than our own force. As if a great animal with great power were supporting us, carrying us. As if a great wind were propelling us. We lean on that, allow it to carry us. Trust, and to whatever extent you've cultivated this natural positive feedback loop, it will happen. There isn't the need to watch over it. And set that aside, knowing it will continue. And bring your attention to your breathing. Pay attention to your breathing. Allow your posture, that wheel, that feedback loop to continue to turn. Sometimes you may need to check up on it. But as much as possible, let it turn on its own. And bring your attention to your breathing. Pay attention to your breathing. Attend the experience of breathing right now. Throw yourself into it. Breathe with your whole heart. Each breath is worthy of that. This breath keeps us alive. It allows us to do everything else. With your whole heart. Let anything held in reserve so that we can worry about other things. Let anything held in reserve so that we can retain a sense of self-consciousness. Give everything you have to the experience of breathing right now. What does it feel like to breathe? Pay attention. Pay attention. We can't remember what it feels like to breathe. That's not what it feels like to breathe right now. We can't expect what it feels like to breathe. That's not what it feels like to breathe right now. Memories, fantasies. That's not what it feels like to breathe right now. This feeling right now. We've never had it before. And once we've had it, it's gone. With your whole heart, throw yourself in to feel each moment. Each moment. And as you pay attention in that way, wholeheartedly, notice how interesting this breath becomes. We have sensations that I didn't know we have. You're breathing with our bellies. Air goes through our nostrils. And yet it's as if our shoulders are included as well. As if our hips, our spine, our legs, our whole body is included in this. Every part of our body is subtly influenced. Maybe we didn't notice that until we paid attention. As we pay attention, as we start to notice things, naturally this becomes interesting. As you pay attention, notice those times when your breath is interesting. And give in to that interest. Don't resist it. Don't resist it. So that we can retain concerns and self-consciousness. Allow the interest to draw you in. Give in to the interest, to the fascination, with the feeling right now that you can't remember and you can't expect. Until it's as if we're surprised, moment after moment, surprised. Perpetually surprised. And as we allow ourselves to be interested, naturally we ourselves concentrate, observe the experience of breathing even more closely. We're automatically drawn in to what's interesting. We don't need someone else to approve. We don't need someone else to watch us and confirm that we're special. We directly experience this moment as unique. This feeling, unique, unexpected, and then gone. Unexpected, gone. We're drawn into that, naturally concentrating on it. And allow this feedback loop to gain momentum, concentration, which may be effortful, even forced, leading to interest, which is a little bit more natural, leading to concentration, which is even more natural, leading to interest, leading to concentration. Carefully cultivate this feedback cycle. So the concentration feeds the interest, and the interest feeds the concentration. And as that cycle begins to happen more naturally, gradually trust in that. Stop working on it. Lean into it. Allow it to carry you. And as you set this aside, allowing it to function on its own, consider for a moment, you've now worked on 6 different things. Straightening up, settling in, and the feedback loop between the two. Concentration, interest, and the feedback between the two. And yet at this moment, even while all that is happening, at this moment, we're not working on anything at all. Perhaps occasionally we check in to be sure that those feedback loops are still functioning. But to a large extent, we simply get out of the way. And bring your attention now to letting this next experience arise. Everything you have, wholeheartedly give yourself to this next experience. Allow this experience to arise fully and completely, without resistance, without interference. Whatever this experience is, allow it to arise completely, just as it is. Everything given to this experience. This experience is totally free to arise. Totally free to arise. Allowed to penetrate your awareness. We're totally open. It's allowed in all the way. And as you do that, notice that anything we hold on to feels like it creates a pressure. And so as we allow things to arise, we naturally want to let things go. Because we can't hold on and receive. You have to let go. Allow yourself to let go. Let go. Let memories, plans, fantasies pass away. Let everything that we're holding on to, including this experience, let go of all of it. Let go. Let go. Let go. And as you let go, notice the more fully that we've let go, the more fully we've let go of this experience, the more fully this next experience can arise. And the more fully this next experience arises, the more fully we let go of the last experience. And the more fully we let go of the last experience, the more fully this next experience arises. Allow that feedback loop to function, even if it happens very quickly, so that you can't observe it. Allow that to happen and let go of that conceptual observation. Let go of that self-conscious observation, so that this feedback loop can arise fully. And it becomes clear, I am not needed. Experience comes and goes without me. I don't need to manage this process. And allow this loop, this cycle, this wheel to turn. Rest on it. Allow it to carry. To carry us on the path. Until there's just the wheel rolling down the path. With no one needed to possess it. And notice we've worked on 9 things. Straighten up, settle in. The feedback between the two. Concentration, interest. The feedback between the two. Let it arise. Let it pass away. The feedback between the two. Very complicated. And yet now, there's nothing to do. Very simple. Any questions, comments, reports? Mhm.
What would happen to us once we go through this? What happens during the day? Would something still stay out of this so that we can face the world in a much more peaceful way? Or it's just when we do it here, and then as you just said there, let go, let go, let go, we just let go everything, and then we are back again into the wheel of life.
It's interesting, the metaphor of the wheel. It's a very interesting metaphor. I can't help but talk about it for a bit right now. I hope you find it interesting. I think it's important though. The Buddha in ancient India is reported, they say, that the Buddha had golden skin. Gold-colored skin, they say. This is actually a highly significant fact. I don't know if you've been to India, but I've been to India. The Dravidian people have been in India for quite a while. They don't have gold-colored skin. So why did the Buddha, who lived in India, have gold-colored skin? The answer is the wheel. This is actually relevant to your question, believe it or not. What about the wheel? There's a group of people, and we don't know why they took over so many places and spread their language so far and wide. We're not entirely sure why we're speaking their language right now, or a version of it. There's a group of people called the Aryan people. They were from Central Asia. And they took over a vast swath of land, from Europe all the way through India. They conquered it. And the main way that they conquered it, this is, of course, as I say, we're not sure about all this. This happened thousands of years ago. We don't really know what happened, but there are some clues. And one of the clues is that they had invented something. They'd invented the war chariot. They had a war chariot. They could attach to a horse, which is one of the reasons that metaphor is used. And they could ride on the back of that chariot and kill people with great efficiency and take over. And one of the descendants of such people is the person whom we refer today as the Buddha. That wheel that allowed them to have a war chariot is another extremely important metaphor, along with the horse, in describing the Dharma. Each society that teaches this path uses the metaphor of their age. And the metaphor of their age is the metaphor of the technology that has allowed that group of people to conquer other groups of people. It's why it's so common when you hear people talk about meditation that they use metaphors connected with computers. You hear it all the time. Shut down the computer, then it works better. It's just like meditation. Shut down your mind, it works better. Because your mind is like a computer. It's not true. Our minds are not like computers. No similarity, actually, except for the ones that we invent, because we want to believe in our minds, and we definitely believe in computers. We use them a lot, and we use them to take over the world. Why does this matter? What's this tangent all about anyway? This tangent is about the fact that the metaphor used for the wheel of existence, the patterns of suffering that we create, the metaphor is the wheel. The metaphor used for escaping from that, escaping from those patterns, is also the wheel. We find a way of getting the wheel to turn the other way. Meditation, as discussed in these texts, is basically a process of getting this wheel to turn in a very specific way that frees us from the other wheel, the wheel of suffering. We do things that make us suffer, so we do more things that make us suffer. We get addicted, and so we do things that hurt us, so we get addicted to more things because we're in pain. Therefore, you can say that yes, we get this wheel to turn, these feedback loops, and they continue to turn through the day. Definitely they do. And in continuing to turn through the day, very mysteriously, they allow us to function in the world. In the world. In a way that accords with the world, according to the customs of the world. So that we can be effective, make a difference in the world while simultaneously becoming free from the world. And the reason I brought up that whole first story, historical speculation, although there's a lot of evidence to it, is that the Buddha, in using that metaphor, showed, look, I am able to function in this world. I'm going to use a metaphor that you're all going to listen to and believe in. It's a metaphor of a wheel that you all believe in because we use this wheel. And that's why we're sitting on this soil right now. Yes? And we also here, look around at the color of our skin. We also use technologies. And that's why we're sitting on this soil right now. The fact that he was able to use metaphors like that people could believe in order to free them from the very motivations that caused them originally to kill people and take over those lands, that's evidence of his ability to simultaneously become free from the world and function in the world. And that's our job as well. It's just what we should do. We get these wheels turning, find ways to make them turn, and they do continue to turn through the day. And as they continue to turn through the day, we're able to function in the world, talking about computers, talking about growth, yes, money, all the things that make the United States what it is today. We talk about all those things, we function right within it, while simultaneously becoming free from it in the same moment. So yes, we get the wheels to turn, and they keep on turning through the day, allowing us to function as we live. Does that answer your question? Or was at too much of a tangent.
It does help, but I was referring to something very actually simple.
Mhm.
I was referring to the kind of stress that we go through
Yeah.
in our life. Can this kind of meditation help us deal with it?
Yes. Yes, it can.
Because when we are here, we feel very good.
Some of us feel very good.
I know I do.
Yeah, good.
And then what happens when I go home or I do other things and
Yeah.
I meet other people and they are leading not a very peaceful life?
Yeah.
How can I transfer what I get here
Mhm.
into that world out there?
The how is a big question. And of course, it's a simple question. I'd suggest that in the theme of tonight, the way that the answer is actually realized is quite complicated. And then it's simple. So I gave a big answer because it's hard to give a detailed answer about how that's done. It's complicated. How do you deal with this situation? How do you deal with that situation? How do you maintain these techniques and this and that when this person is saying this and that person is saying that? Those are actually very complicated questions. Different techniques should be applied under different circumstances. Different strategies should be utilized according to who we're with and what we're trying to accomplish. That's quite complicated, and it can take a little while to learn. And it's okay that it's complicated. The significant point is, in a very general sense, that we do get these wheels turning. Yes, just as we did. And then we prioritize that. We want to be in situations where we're trying to be of service, help the world, be in the world, while simultaneously maintaining these cycles that we just developed so that we're becoming free from the world at that very moment. So the fundamental answer, the simple answer to a simple question, and if you want to make the question complicated, then there's a complicated answer as well. But the simple answer to the simple question is prioritize this. Leave and keep on prioritizing it. As you leave and you meet a situation, that person is prioritizing something other than this, perhaps. So you prioritize this and see what happens in that relationship. See what happens as the two of you feed back into each other. They feed into you and you feed into them, and they feed back into you and you feed back into them, and you keep on prioritizing this and they can keep on prioritizing whatever they prioritize. And something's going to happen. The thing that will happen is very mysterious, but it is that the very forces that cause injustice are transformed into the very forces that cause peace. That's why I brought up the metaphor of the wheel. He was using he talked about a wheel, a force at the time primarily of war, and showed how you can reverse its direction. It's the same wheel, but you can turn it the other way. Greed, hatred, ignorance, those can be forces of injustice, capitalism, colonialism, on and on. But you can take those very experiences and turn them the other way. Yes? So that the suffering that causes us, we suffer, and therefore we hurt someone. Yes? You can take exactly the same suffering, turn it the other way, and suddenly it's a source of compassion. Yes? The same thing, suffering, can be a source of violence or a source of love. The same thing, friendship. So we take the techniques that we just developed and we keep it going and let the world input into that, and we let the technique input into the world. So the simple answer, which can be very complicated, is prioritize the technique and then let the relationships happen. Prioritize the technique and let the relationships happen. And something's going to happen. You're going to interact with people and something's going to happen. And you're prioritizing the technique. Yes? We don't have to make them do it. We don't have to let them make us do something else. We prioritize this. And strangely, mysteriously, there we are in the world, functioning effectively while becoming free from it. Very advanced practice. So it's okay if it takes time to develop. And this is all I do with my life. I just work on this and work on this and work on this and don't get very far. It was better than the alternative.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, there's nothing else. Maybe I'd ask you, is there a specific circumstance that you were referring to?
I don't follow very well. What is that you meant? Excuse me.
Yeah, when you asked the question, so we did this practice, can we take it out into the world?
Yes.
Into other situations when other people may not be doing this? Was there any specific circumstance you were thinking about?
Not really. It's just that it seems like this kind of problems, they come and they go. And we still, once we leave from here, we still have to drive a car. There could be somebody not really actually driving well. He might come right where he shouldn't be. He just arrive somewhere. I mean, the world is not very peaceful out there. But I thank you very much for your help there. If I can say this from what I understand, you taught us very well, prioritize, which is excellent. And the second thing, which I also get out of it, which was said also by a big master some time ago, live in this world, but not of this world. In other words, yeah, but not of it.
Mhm.
And that's what I got a little bit also from what you have said.
Yeah, it's very nice. They did a good job translating that into English. English is convenient in that way. They made a new phrase, actually. Right? Prepositions don't behave in Asian languages the way they behave in English. And so they made that up. It was a really interesting translation. And sometimes when you translate, you actually make something new. You must know about translation, yes? But translation is tricky. Translation is not so easy. And you can't help when you translate, but to actually write something new. You can't help it. You can't really translate, right? It's just not possible. You're doing your best, but you adjust because the language is different. You can say different things in different languages. And so they came up with that phrase in English of in the world, but not of the world. And I think it's a very useful phrase for us. But would you mind, since you did give us a specific example, there you are driving, somebody cuts you off. That's what you meant, cut you off. They drive, they go where they shouldn't go, I think you said. They are where they shouldn't be. How would this apply to that situation? There's a specific case. You're driving, you leave here this evening. You're driving along, going home. It's not a horse, right? The horse isn't gonna just carry you home. You have to drive the car. Yes? Somebody cuts you off. And? Should we let him reply? Very good. Yes? Yes?
Oh my God.
What do you do?
That's one way.
Does he be angry?
Yeah, that's typical.
Good. Is that a full prioritization of the practice?
Partial? No.
Perhaps we could fully experience the anger without acting on it.
Very good. Good. Fully experience the anger. Good.
And
That's
let
good.
it go.
And let it go. Great. So there's a good opportunity. This is one way. We practice the let arise and let pass away at the end. So the anger arises, you let it arise, and then you let it go. Let it arise, let it go. Maybe the next wave comes. Great. Let that arise, let that go. The next wave comes. Let that arise, let that go. This is a great way to prioritize the practice under those circumstances. Any others? Other strategies? Other strategies?
Well, Bill Fronsdale talks about this in one of his talks, and he talks about driving a car, and he talks about some experiences like that. So I try to now or practice. I'm not saying I can always accomplish it. It used to be if somebody would cut me off, I would have perhaps not as strong of a reaction, but more of an anger reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like somehow they were doing something to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when in fact it could have been an accident,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So you just react to the physical situation with, slow down or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
realize, not add something to the situation, not add my interpretation. I can't always do that,
Mm-hmm.
but just take it for the physical act of what's happening
Mm-hmm.
without throwing my story out. Like, because I'm getting angry at what? A
Yeah.
story that I've created that they cut me off
Yeah.
somehow on purpose.
Good. So what's the strategy exactly? Can you lay that out for us? What's the
Well, I guess
practice in
when
the
I
moment?
feel myself, because I think I still have like that millisecond it starts the reaction.
Yeah.
And then I try and catch myself.
And do what? What do you do? What's the practice?
Well, I have this little chime right hanging from my
Yeah.
car mirror.
Yeah.
3 tiny little chimes, and I just hit it. And
Good.
it reminds me that
Great.
it's nothing really.
Okay, great. So then let me try to, I think that it's quite useful to formalize these sorts of things into a technique. So we've known each other for a long time. We're close. So
So you could play with it or
Yeah.
tease it out.
yeah, so I'm gonna take this and run with it.
Sure.
What you just said is a great description. I don't know that it's a technique. Does that make sense? You said what happens, but it's useful to actually turn it into a technique, so that we know what we're going to do now. Because I think a lot of the time our approach is, this would be the right reaction, so I'm going to try to get myself to have it. That isn't exactly a mindfulness technique. So let me try to say what I'm actually hearing you say. You started off driving, aware of what was happening. You're aware of seeing the road, seeing the other cars, you're holding the steering wheel and such. There you are, present, driving. Something that happened, someone drove in front of you, and you went away from the physical reality, the physical world, into a story. So you left seeing, hearing, feeling the world, and went into seeing, hearing, feeling a story. About the world, you could say, but we actually don't even know that. It's a story.
Yes.
We've now distinguished between the two sorts of experiences. Your strategy then is get yourself back into the physical world. And your trick is have a chime, which is a pleasant part of the world, because maybe if you just pay attention to what you're seeing, you're going to see the person's car who just cut you off, and it will remind you back of the story again, right? So what you're hoping for, this is actually very useful. What you're hoping for is a positive feedback loop that holds you in the present. The issue is that the present means what you see, hear, and feel in the objective world, but something that you're seeing in the objective world, the back of this person's car, sends you back into the story. So you don't have a positive feedback loop at all. You understand what I'm saying? This is highly technical.
I don't know that it sends me back into the story.
Well, I think, well, maybe it doesn't for you, but then I wonder why you need the chime. You could look at the person's car, right?
Oh, yeah.
For most people,
Okay.
you look at the car and you get angry. And that's the thing that got you angry in the first
I thought you
place.
meant after the chime.
Right? So the car comes in, you're angry, you're still looking at the car. Oftentimes the seeing of the objective world sends us more into the story. The story then sends us into that very particular aspect of the objective world, which sends us back into the story, and then we're off and we're out of control because this is an exponential growth curve that's taken over our lives. So you have a trick to get you out of that feedback loop, and that is the chime. So that chime has nothing to do with that story. And in fact, you've carefully given it its own story, right?
Yeah.
It has a story, which is get out of your story. Yes? So you chime it, and then it reminds, and then it's something in the physical world that reminds, that cuts off the story. And therefore you can stay in the objective world. But without the story, so then suddenly it's just a car. So I actually think that it's useful to tease that out, because this is actually the work that this evening is about. How do you notice the feedback loops? How do you take the time to analyze them? It's complicated and subtle and requires a great deal of attention. And then once you've done it and set it all up for yourself, it's extremely simple. All you do is hit the chime, and the whole thing happens on its own. Yes? So that's the work that I'm trying to describe this evening. It's that way of approaching our experience. We start to realize that our experience is extremely malleable. That most of what we experience is habitual cues. Cues that cause habits. Let's do it there. That's the right way. Most of our lives are just cues, cueing habits. And so we can change the cues and we can change the habits, and we're on our way.
Well, and that really makes total sense, putting it into, how you teased it out, because I do find myself now in those situations where I don't hit the thing.
Yeah.
and, somebody cut me off. I'm just using cut me
Yeah,
off.
sure.
You know, so somebody cut me off and I didn't get upset,
Right,
you know, and so,
exactly. So you broke,
so that happened automatically.
yes. Yes, it happened automatically. And that's where the life changes happen. Which is very confusing for us because almost everything that we're taught is so formulaic and so conscious and intentional. Everything I teach you, it feels so complicated. I'm just breathing. Why do I have to breathe in a certain way and pay attention to my breathing in a certain way? Give me a break. It's a burden. Why are you giving me a burden? I got tons of burdens already. The sense of mindfulness. But if you do it that way, then at some point, finally, it happens automatically. And that then is where the life changes happen. Just a second. Yeah. Well.
I find that conscious breathing is very helpful in such situations.
Uh-huh.
I try to train myself that when I start to feel my jaw muscle tense up or my shoulders tense up or any of the sensations that I associate with being upset or angry, I try to bring my attention back to my breath and just breathe in and breathe out and try to work on figuring out how to diffuse the trigger that because usually somebody has behaved in a way other than how I believe that they should have behaved. And human behavior is human behavior. I mean, people behave as people behave, and my belief that they should behave differently doesn't help the situation. So I try. I found many times I can get in a situation where I would have been very angry before, and just completely equanimous.
Excellent. So then here's another perfect example. We practice the breathing, right? That's a cycle. Inhale, exhale, attending to your breathing. It actually holds our interest after a while, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It holds our interest. That's a cycle that we just practiced. Will has it down. Will's been doing this practice for a zillion years now, right? Master of this practice, at least in this group, at least for us. Master in our world. So it's an automatic thing now. And he's furthermore teased out two sets of cues that you mentioned. Yes? There's a tension in my jaw. There's a tension in my shoulders. You have identified that. Yes?
Yeah.
Each time you notice that tension, that's become a cue not to get really mad and attack, but that's now a cue, come back to the breathing, which is an automatic cycle. So it'll happen for you now. And then automatically you're not angry, you're calm. But that's another perfect example of how you set up these feedback loops, how you structure things in a very specific way so that you're prioritizing the practice. So these are two excellent examples of answering this question. How do you bring this out into the world? They're two perfect examples of how to do it. And I'm afraid that we're out of time. Sorry.
Somehow the time has gone fast.
Yes, I know.
May I ask a last question?
As long as it's okay if I answer it very quickly.
It's a deep question and you may not have time to answer it tonight.
Good.
But really, all what was said, is it really actually necessary considering what the Buddha said? And he said that in life actually is part of life. In other words, we go through what we go through, suffering is there. So what's the point then? Why doing all of these strategies and all of these things? How about letting ourselves to suffer and simply let go.
Because the purpose of life is to resolve suffering. When he said that there is suffering, he didn't mean that we should accept it. He did not accept it.
We don't have to suffer.
We do not have to suffer. The Buddha, from the moment of his awakening onward, did not suffer for one moment.
But what if we are not yet where he is at?
Then we should strive to get there.
And
Buddha's
then we won't
teaching-
have to suffer.
The Buddha's teaching is not just suffering. The shortest explanation of the Buddha's teaching is suffering and the end of suffering. He said, I teach one thing and one thing only. Suffering and the end of suffering. Anyone who has realized the significance of suffering knows for themselves that suffering is to be resolved.
I'm very happy to hear that. And it means we don't have to suffer.
That's correct. The Buddha didn't say you have to suffer. He said that suffering is unnatural and produced. Stop producing it. So we have ways of stopping producing suffering. Actions, tangible steps that we can take for the sake of the world. Michael?
Yes. The Rising Tide Vermont website has a protect, how do you pronounce this?
I don't know what you're referring to.
Giprags?
Oh, Giprags.
Giprags.
I don't know how to say it.
Oh, yeah.
Giprags is under attack. I love Giprags. Giprags is as good as it sounds. It's a park. It's fantastic. We've been there. Lyda and I spent the night, a few nights actually, at Giprags. Remember?
Yeah.
That barn.
Oh, pretty.
It's fantastic. And it's under attack. They want to destroy it to put a fracked gas pipeline through it.
Where is it?
It's in
Heinsberg.
Heinsberg, maybe? Heinsberg?
Somewhere
Yeah.
It's near CVU. It's near CVU. And we have to protect it. Yes, how do we protect it?
There's a petition that you need to sign by tomorrow on the Rising Tide Vermont website. I've signed it.
Rising Tide Vermont website.
Soryu
Bill
has signed it,
I've signed it.
so sign it, please.
Rising Tide,
Yeah?
sign the petition.
And it's illegal for them to put a gas pipipeline through it.
I thought
Yeah,
it was illegal in Vermont.
I mean, it is.
Fracking is
like a
illegal.
pipeline.
No, but it was given to the town with an agreement that it would never be developed for any purpose. And the town has admitted that they have illegally broken that agreement. They've admitted that. So we need to do something about that.
That's right.
Giprags is great. Go and visit. That's all? Anything else? We need a few more. What else can we do to save the world? Be nice to someone? Yes? What else?
It's not this week, but it's coming up in a while. But on April 30th and May 1st, there's a big event. There's the, April 30th, there's the People's Convention, which is a coming together of many groups, including Rising Tide and climate groups and healthcare is human right and workers' rights groups, and to come together and strategize together how all we can support all of these struggles for justice. And then on May 1st, there's the traditional rally. So it's a while away.
Great. No, it's good.
It's good to
Keep it on your radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
That's all weekend this year. So.
Great. One last announcement, something we can do to save the world.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself. Excellent. Great. Thank you all for coming. Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to have this community. And the chanting will begin at 7:15. Is that correct?
Mhm.
10 minutes of chanting at 7:15. And then we'll leave in silence after that.